It's actually the people around the whole world logging onto Netflix last night to find not one, not two, but 3 episodes from the new Harry and Meghan documentary. And after years of speculation, we got to hear their side of the story, their relationship, and also what happens beyond the tabloid.
The room did not erupt when Tom Bower revealed it. That was what made the moment colder. No shouting, no dramatic interruption. Just a document placed at the center of a story that had been defended, repeated, and protected for years. And in that silence, one truth became impossible to ignore. Meghan's entire narrative was no longer being challenged by opinion, it was being confronted by paper. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. Bower did not raise his voice during the recorded documentary interview, and that restraint made every word feel sharper. He stepped forward with what he called a sealed palace-linked document, a written record connected to royal handling, and he explained that palace protocol, the set of rules guiding conduct and duties inside royal life, had not been hidden from Meghan in the way the Surtu public had been led to believe. The Duchess had built so much of her emotional case around isolation and confusion, around the idea that she entered that world without proper support. But this file struck at the foundation. It showed dates. It showed names. It showed instructions. More dangerously, it showed that she had been briefed before later saying she had been left unsupported and uninformed. Bower knew the weight of that distinction, and he let silence do the work. Meghan received the news away from the noise, and for one terrible moment, she did not answer. Her face tightened when the words written record were repeated, because those words carried a different kind of threat. A headline could be denied, a commentator could be dismissed, a hostile voice could be framed as part of a campaign. But paper was colder. Paper did not apologize. The former actress had survived storms before, yet this one reached deeper, because it challenged not only her memory, but the public structure around that memory. Meghan understood what the file meant. Once people believed there had been proof all along, sympathy could begin turning into suspicion. Harry watched the fallout with dread moving through him. The Duke had defended Meghan with the force of a husband who believed pain had been ignored, but now he stared at a challenge to the story they had carried together. He did not see another article. He saw a crack. Bower's calm delivery made the document feel impossible to escape, and every pause asked the same brutal question. Who kept this record buried? Who allowed it to surface now? And before the file could destroy a narrative, it first had to expose the lives built around defending it. A document never wounds everyone equally. For Tom Bower, it was evidence. For Meghan, it was a threat. For Harry, it was a mirror. And for the palace, it was the kind of buried record that could not be touched without reopening. Years of resentment. As the revelation spread, the story stopped being about paper and became about pride, loyalty, fear, and survival. Bower had waited for a moment strong enough to shift the entire conversation, and through a recorded documentary account, he revealed how one file had begun to pull against the story Meghan had carried into the public mind. The palace communication records, written logs that track official messages, briefings, and internal instructions mattered, because they did not behave like emotion. They did not soften under pressure. They did not change with time. Meghan's account had rested on the feeling of being alone inside royal life, confused by rules, exposed to judgment, and abandoned when she needed guidance most. That pain had become part of her identity in the public battle. But now Bower's document did something colder. It suggested that the system she described as silent had, at least on paper, spoken to her before the fracture became famous. Meghan sat across from Harry with the kind of stillness that comes when anger has not yet found words. She asked how a document like that could emerge after so many years, and the Duke did not answer quickly. He wanted to defend her. He wanted to dismiss it. He wanted to say the record changed nothing, because pain cannot be measured in signatures and dates. But Harry also understood why the file was dangerous. If the public began to believe Meghan had been formally briefed, then every later statement about being left uninformed would be dragged back into question. The Duchess watched his face carefully, searching for certainty, but he gave her concern instead, and concern was not enough. Charles received the same news, with a silence that frightened the aide standing near him. The king understood the danger instantly, because the document was no longer just about Meghan. It was about whether the palace had possessed proof and chosen restraint. He set the summary down without comment, but his hesitation said what his voice did not. William was told separately, and the prince did not explode. He became still. That control made the moment sharper, because the future king looked less surprised than confirmed. He had suspected for years that memory and record were moving in opposite directions, and now paper had stepped into the gap. The deeper shock was not that the document existed, it was that several people knew it existed and kept quiet. And once those names began circling the revelation, attention turned backward to the moment that had set the entire crisis in motion. Every royal rupture has a beginning that looks ordinary at the time. A closed door, a polite briefing, a stack of notes placed on a table. Years later, that forgotten moment returns, carrying the weight of everything denied, defended, and rewritten. In this story, the trigger was not a public speech or a televised interview. It was a private briefing Meghan was never supposed to be able to forget. Meghan walked into that meeting, believing she was entering another lesson in royal survival, but the file would later prove it was far more dangerous than that. The briefing happened at Kensington Palace, the London royal residence where senior family, offices, and household staff often handled private planning, and it was arranged before her first major royal family Christmas at Sandringham, the country estate where the royals traditionally gather for the holiday. Palace protocol, meaning the formal rules for behavior, order, greetings, movement, and public duty, was placed before her in careful detail. That mattered, because Christmas at Sandringham was never just a family gathering. It was a public test. One wrong step could become a national judgment, and one misunderstood instruction could later become a personal wound. Bower's documented account tied the revealed record directly to that briefing, showing instructions, attendees, and confirmation that Meghan had received guidance before the season that would later become part of her emotional case. Meghan left the room outwardly composed, but one aide noticed the pressure in her hand as she tightened her grip around the folder she had been given. The aide said nothing then, because silence was safer than interpretation. Yet that small physical detail would later feel like the first sign that the meeting had not landed gently. The Duchess had been handed rules, but rules did not feel like comfort. She had been given guidance, but guidance did not feel like protection. That difference mattered, because it became the gap where the future argument would grow. Harry later reassured her that palace rules could be cold, but he believed they existed to shield her if followed. The Duke wanted to believe the system could bend around love. Meghan wanted to believe he was right. Neither of them understood that the paper trail had already begun. Bower revealed through his recorded interview that the document did not merely record what was explained, it recorded who signed off afterward. A courtier's handwritten note in the margin became the sharpest detail, because that note confirmed Meghan asked questions and received answers. The courtier had not written it with cruelty. The official had written it as routine, but routine became evidence, and evidence became a weapon. Harry would later see that margin note as a trap from the past, while Meghan would see it as proof that the palace remembered procedure better than pain. That small note turned the briefing from background detail into the central weapon of the coming confrontation. And when the people named in that record realized its meaning, the first private confrontation became unavoidable. There are confrontations that explode, and there are confrontations that freeze the air. This one belonged to the second kind. No cameras, no advisors rushing in, just two people standing inside a private room with years of accusation between them and one document on the table. It was not the loudest moment in the story. It was the moment everyone feared most. Harry demanded the meeting after Tom Bower's reveal through a recorded documentary interview, and the Duke came carrying the fury of a man who believed his wife had been cornered again. The palace had become more than a building in this crisis. It meant the royal household, the staff, offices, records, and private systems that manage royal life behind closed doors. That mattered, because if the household had held the document back, then the question was no longer whether Meghan had misunderstood protocol. It became whether someone had waited years to release pain at the exact moment it could do the most damage. Harry wanted that answer from William, and the prince entered already knowing the paper record contradicted the version repeated outside palace walls. He did not come to comfort his brother. He came to face him. Harry's voice broke before his anger did. He accused the family of waiting until Meghan was most exposed, most hated, most vulnerable, and then allowing the file to emerge like a punishment disguised as truth. The Duchess was not in the room, but her presence filled every word, because the Duke's loyalty to Meghan had become both his shield and his burden. William listened without interrupting, and that restraint made his reply even colder. The prince said the document was not created to attack anyone. It was created because protocol leaves records. Protocol, he explained, was not a weapon at birth. It was the formal trail of duties, briefings, rules, and confirmations that kept the monarchy from running on memory alone. Harry heard the words, but he also heard what sat beneath them. His brother was saying the paper existed because the institution had expected this day might come. A copy of the briefing confirmation lay between them, and neither man touched it at first. The silence became its own accusation. Harry stared at the page as though the ink could reach back and rewrite the years he had spent defending Meghan's pain. William kept his hands still, but the future king's control was not peace. It was warning. The Duke finally reached toward the document, then stopped, because reading it would make the damage permanent. He looked at his brother with something worse than anger. Doubt. The prince answered that doubt with one devastating question. Who benefits from pretending the record never existed? The confrontation ended without forgiveness, and that question shifted the crisis away from emotion and toward the machinery of power that had kept the document hidden for so long. The monarchy survives because paper moves carefully. Files are logged. Briefings are archived. Notes are preserved. Nothing important truly disappears. But when Tom Bower's document came into public view, the palace had to confront a more dangerous truth. This record had not been lost. It had been held. And whoever controlled access to it had controlled the timing of the entire explosion. Charles read the summary once, then read it again, and the silence around him became almost unbearable. The restricted internal archive, a guarded storage system for sensitive royal household. Records mattered because it was not a place where casual papers drifted in and out. The royal household meant the offices, staff, advisors, and private systems that kept the monarchy functioning beyond public ceremony. And protocol records were the written trail of briefings, rules, confirmations, and decisions. If Bower's documented account had truly traced the file back there, then Meghan's crisis was no longer only about memory. It was about access. It was about timing. It was about the terrible possibility that someone inside the machinery had known exactly where the paper was and exactly when it would hurt most. Charles placed his glasses down without speaking, and that small act frightened the senior aide more than anger would have. The king felt two loyalties colliding in his chest. One loyalty belonged to the institution, because the monarchy could not allow its own records to be dismissed as meaningless when those records protected order, duty, and history. The other loyalty belonged to family, because every page now threatened to reopen wounds around Meghan, Harry, and the fracture that had already cost them more than anyone admitted in public. The aide confirmed, through a private internal briefing, that access to the file had been requested weeks before Bower's reveal. That detail changed the room. It meant the document had not simply surfaced. Someone had gone looking for it. Camilla watched Charles absorb the news, and the Queen Consort understood at once that this was not simply about Meghan. It was about trust inside the palace itself. She had seen royal storms before, but this one carried a colder danger because suspicion did not stop at the Sussexes. It moved through corridors. It touched desks. It settled on names no one wanted to say aloud. The senior aide held back the identity attached to the access request, not because the name was unknown, but because revealing it too soon could split the household before the king had chosen his response. Camilla studied the monarch's face, searching for whether he feared the truth, or already suspected it. Charles finally asked who had authorized the release trail, and the room seemed to tighten around the question. The king did not raise his voice. He did not need to. Everyone understood that the answer could expose not an enemy outside the palace, but a hand close enough to reach the archive without being stopped. And while the palace searched for that hand behind the file, the first consequences began landing with brutal speed. For years, Meghan had faced criticism and survived it by returning to the emotional center of her story. But this was different. This was not a rumor to dismiss or a headline to outlast. This was a document with dates, names, and confirmation lines. The fallout did not arrive as a storm. It arrived as a tightening circle, and every hour made that circle smaller. Meghan ended the phone call and placed the device face down, as though the silence afterward hurt more than the words she had just heard. The palace had refused to issue a broad denial, and that refusal mattered because royal silence often speaks louder than any official statement. An official statement, in simple terms, is a formal message released by the household to confirm, deny, or control a public matter, and this time, the household chose control by withholding comfort. The Duchess understood the danger. Public discussion had shifted. People were no longer only asking whether she had felt unsupported inside royal life. They were asking whether she had accurately described what she had been told. That difference was devastating, because pain could still be real while the timeline began to fracture beneath it. Harry became defensive almost immediately, and the Duke clung to the one truth he believed no document could erase. He insisted that emotional truth still mattered, even if the file complicated the sequence of events. Meghan listened, but his defense did not calm her. The Duchess knew emotional truth could move hearts, but written confirmation could move judgment. The palace protocol briefing, the formal meeting where royal rules and expectations were explained before public or family duties, now stood at the center of everything. If that briefing had been confirmed, then the story was no longer clean. It carried shadows. It carried gaps. And those gaps gave critics a place to strike. Tom Bower prepared the second blow through another documented account connected to his recorded interview. And this time, the detail was more personal than dates or signatures. He was ready to disclose the identity of one aide who had personally confirmed Meghan understood the briefing. The aide mattered because this was not someone openly hostile to her. This was someone once viewed as sympathetic, someone who had seen the pressure around her and had not been treated as an enemy. That made the name dangerous. It suggested the document did not come only from cold palace machinery, but from a human witness close enough to remember her questions, her answers, and the atmosphere around that room. Meghan felt the crisis change shape. Contradiction was painful, but betrayal was worse. Harry saw that shift in her and pushed harder against the document, as if loyalty alone could force the page back into darkness. Yet the Duke could not stop what Bower had already set in motion. The palace remained silent. The file remained standing. And the Duchess realized the most damaging witness might be someone she had once trusted. But the true turning point did not come from the palace, the press, or the public. It came in a private moment between husband and wife. After the noise, there was a room with no advisors and no escape. Meghan and Harry had weathered storms before, but this one entered the marriage differently. It asked not whether they loved each other, but whether they remembered the same past in the same way. And when Harry finally asked the question he had avoided, the document stopped being political and became personal. Harry waited until the calls ended before he spoke, and the Duke sounded less angry than afraid. The aide named in Tom Bower's documented account had confirmed Meghan's response during the Christmas protocol briefing, and that detail mattered because it placed a living witness beside the written record. A protocol briefing, in plain language, was a private meeting where palace staff explained royal rules, family expectations, public behavior, and the order of events before a major duty. This one mattered more than most because it came before Meghan's first major royal family Christmas at Sandringham, a holiday gathering that carried public pressure far beyond any ordinary family event. If she had been told what to expect, the world would not stop asking why the story later sounded so abandoned. Meghan heard the question before Harry fully asked it. She knew his pauses. She knew when the Duke was defending her, and she knew when he was fighting himself. He finally asked whether she remembered being told more than they had ever publicly acknowledged, and the words landed between them with a cruelty neither of them wanted. Meghan did not answer at once. The Duchess did not fall apart. She grew quiet, because emotional memory and written record were now pulling in opposite directions. She remembered pressure. She remembered coldness. She remembered feeling watched, measured, and judged, before she had learned how to breathe inside royal life. But the document remembered dates. The aide remembered questions. The margin note remembered answers. Harry admitted what had been building inside him since the reveal began. He had carried years of anger because he believed Meghan had been abandoned without guidance, left alone in a system that knew exactly how to break newcomers. The Duke said that belief had shaped his choices, his speeches, his distance from family, and even the way he looked back at William, Charles, and the palace. Meghan listened, and the Duchess understood the wound behind his confession. She answered carefully that being briefed did not mean being protected. Rules could be explained and still feel like a cage. Instructions could be given and still leave someone emotionally alone. Yet even as she said it, both of them felt the damage. The distinction was true, but it no longer fully shielded the original narrative. Their private fracture had become the emotional center of the reckoning, and once that fracture became visible beyond palace walls, the world seized on one image that captured the entire collapse. By morning, the revelation no longer belonged to Tom Bower alone. It belonged to breakfast tables, newsrooms, royal watchers, and crowds gathering beneath palace gates. The country had watched royal stories rise and fall before, but this one carried a sharper edge. It was not just gossip. It was the sight of a famous narrative meeting a written record and losing its certainty. A London newspaper struck first, with a front page so blunt it felt like a judgment before. Breakfast, the briefing she said never came. The phrase spread because it reduced years of pain, argument, loyalty, and royal silence into one brutal line. A front page, in simple terms, is the main cover of a newspaper, the place where editors put the story they believe will define the day. And this one mattered because it told the public what to focus on. Not Meghan's loneliness, not Harry's anger, the dates, the briefing, the confirmation line. A morning broadcaster then opened the segment by placing a printed timeline beside Meghan's past statements, framing the crisis as a question of credibility, not just cruelty. Meghan's supporters pushed back, with emotion, fierce enough to slow the rush toward judgment. They argued that a document could not capture loneliness, fear, pressure, or the silent panic of entering royal life under the eyes of a country ready to condemn her. The Duchess, they said, may have been briefed and still felt abandoned. That defense mattered because it preserved the human part of her story, the part no signature could fully erase. But critics focused on the signed confirmation line, treating it as the point where sympathy began to split from trust. If Meghan had received guidance, they asked, why had the public been led to feel the palace gave her none? The debate turned cruel because both sides held a piece of truth, and neither piece could heal the other. Outside Buckingham Palace, a small crowd gathered as the story hardened into public feeling. One woman held a folded paper and said, if the dates are real, everything changes. Buckingham Palace, the monarch's official London residence, and a symbol of the crown itself, mattered because people do not gather there for ordinary arguments. They gather there when private royal pain becomes national theater. Harry's defenders saw a family using records to crush emotion. Meghan's critics saw a famous account finally meeting evidence it could not charm away. The palace response remained controlled, but the refusal to deny the document gave the public a verdict without an official declaration. Silence did the work. By the end of the day, the story was no longer about whether Meghan suffered. It was about whether the world had been asked to believe an incomplete version of why she suffered. And that distinction became the final verdict, because the document did not erase pain, it changed what people believed about the story built around it. In the end, the document did not need to shout. It did not need royal approval, public anger or palace revenge. Its power came from being simple. A record existed, a briefing happened, names were written down, and once those facts entered the story, the emotional architecture around Meghan's narrative could no longer stand exactly as it had before. Tom Bower's reveal, delivered through his documented account and recorded interview, permanently changed how Meghan's claims about royal guidance would be understood. The document mattered because it did not try to explain emotion. It challenged certainty. A royal briefing, in plain language, is a private meeting where palace officials explain duties, rules, expectations, and public behavior before major events. And this one became decisive because it showed guidance had existed before the story of abandonment hardened into public belief. The monarchy emerged from the crisis not innocent, not gentle, and not healed, but brutally documented. It protected itself through paper as much as tradition, through records as much as crowns, and that cold habit became its shield. Meghan faced the painful reality that her feelings could still be real, while the public version of events had been weakened. The Duchess had not lost every human claim to hurt, fear, or loneliness, but she had lost the clean simplicity of the story people once repeated for her. That was the wound. Not that pain vanished, but that certainty did. Harry carried an even deeper bruise. The Duke had built years of anger around the belief that his wife had been abandoned without guidance, and now he had to face the possibility that the past was more complicated than the battle he fought in its name. He had defended Meghan with love, but love could not erase the pressure of dates, signatures, and remembered answers. Charles accepted what no statement could soften. The king understood that the document had ended one argument while opening a permanent scar, because royal records had achieved what royal speeches never could. William understood the cost as well. The prince knew the reveal had wounded his brother and cornered Meghan, yet he also recognized that silence would have buried the monarchy's own record beneath emotion. For him, the choice had become brutal. Protect peace by letting the file disappear, or protect truth by allowing the pain to surface. The future king chose the colder path, and the family paid for it. This moment meant that Meghan's narrative was not destroyed because pain was disproven. It was destroyed because certainty was. The monarchy survived colder, harder, and more guarded, while Meghan and Harry were left with a truth neither paper nor passion could soften. There is no next chapter needed to understand the meaning of this moment. The document stood, the narrative cracked, and the royal family learned once again that the most dangerous weapon inside a palace is not a crown, it is a record. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.